Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. I hope you're doing well. And today I wanted to share some observations I've learned about teens so far this year, last year, talking to parents, coming off of parent teacher conference. And here's the big question that I've actually gotten. Well, they say it 3 times, and then you need to do something with that. So the impetus for me hopping on here today is to talk about the problem of the lack of critical thinking in the teenage brain these days. I'm sure it's been going on for a while as schedules get busier, as technology becomes more intense, and as kids start to either break down from so much pressure, and I feel like there's just a block on the development of their critical thinking. So that's the big topic today. I'm going to talk about the problem and then give you 3 tips. I actually have 7 of them. I've done some research on this week, now that I have quite a few less seniors for college admission essay writing. But what I want you to get out of this is how to naturally, organically help your teenagers grow their critical thinking skills. Why? It will ultimately help them better understand literature, better understand social studies, better understand science, and with a greater understanding of what they're learning, what can they do better? They can write about it more clearly, because remember, muddy thinking produces muddy writing. So a good friend of mine, a mom client this week, came off of parent teacher conferences saying, Amy, my teen's teachers have commented on how her teen works hard, is diligent, is committed, is dedicated, yet she's noticed there is just a lack of the ability to take an understanding of a novel, of a play, of a short story, of abstract concepts to the next level, to a more sophisticated level. So if the teen is having a difficult time taking the reading to an analytical level, then how in the world can they write an essay? Can they write a paper? Can they, convey the thoughts in their brain? Because those thoughts are really barely there, and they're not allowed to, foster those skills. And if it's not happening in class, if there isn't discussion going on in class, how in the world, how are your teens supposed to write clearly about really difficult, wonderful, challenging work if they can't think clearly about it? If there aren't those discussions happening in class? I'll never forget, this is about 5 years ago, and my family had moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was tutoring a junior, and I think it was American Lit, at a school here in Charlotte. And I asked this boy, I said, well, you have this essay on The Great Gatsby, so tell me about, what are you discussing in class about The Great Gatsby? And there's this big lapse. There was this big pause. And I said, well, like, what are you talking about? Or what's the specific arguable discussion question that's on the whiteboard or the chalkboard or what? And this student said, well, Miss Haskell, we just kind of silently read and answer study guide questions. So if there's no discussion going on about it, and a lot of these books were written, decades ago, how are the kids supposed to reach this analytical level? And a lot of them aren't. But they're expected to write in this specific analytical way. They're expected to be able to explain their thoughts. What if those thoughts aren't there? What are these kids supposed to do? So what I wanted to do today, parents, and again, this is coming from a friend of mine, a client who's really frustrated. And this client also, in her work, she sees a lot of, I guess millennials it's probably Gen Z, applying for jobs, and they're asked questions, both like to answer them verbally and in the written form. And if it takes too long and they have to give details, they're at a loss. So I wanted to give you 3. Again, I've done some research here on this. There are 7 tips, but just, for the sake of hopping on here and giving, 3 tips that you can take away. And I'm going to also I'll post these in the chat. This is how you can help your teenagers, even your middle school kids, really start to think more critically. And the idea is that they apply, this is consistent. You can gently, organically start this. They apply this to other areas of their their lives. And of course, my neck of the woods, they're applying it to, whatever literary work, like their novel, an English class play, or short story. So number one is for you to ask questions, right? And really the best way you say, oh, Amy, well, what kind of questions am I supposed to ask? Well, I've been doing this for a long time. And in guiding many English classes with 25 students from freshmen all the way through sophomores, I loved guided discussions. And if you really listen to what the teens are saying, if you really try to picture where they're coming from, follow-up questions are super easy. And this is really, really fun. So how can you make it a habit, parent, to ask your teen more questions? Here's a good one that I think works really well. And some of you are going to laugh at this, but forget asking, oh, how was your day? Because you're just going to get good, fine, boring, the one word answer. And if you get aggravated about that, you can't tell them you're aggravated about that. So why not touch upon what teens love to do, or middle school kids? Ask them, so what was the most frustrating thing? Or what were a couple of annoying things that happened today? Ooh, they love that. They're going to complain about this other student, or complain how gross the bathrooms are, about this teacher, or the awful bus ride. Well, was it the noise on the bus that really bothers you the most? Or is it just really, is it like that bumpiness, or is it just too cold? Like, don't let them off the hook, whatever it is, right? You don't have to delve into an analytical discussion on, Dostoevsky or Shakespeare, but just continue the questioning. So tip number one is to ask questions. Okay, tip number two. Now, this might be hard for some parents out there, some dear friends of mine who like to make every single decision for their kids who aren't 5, 6, 7, 8 years old anymore, right? So 18-year-olds, yes, I know a lot of you who I love are parent friends of mine, a lot of seniors, parents making all of these decisions for them. So how can you wean away from that and encourage decision making? Because if you put the ball into their court, what time do you think it's best to leave? Right? And even if they're off with that, allow them to make the decision. What are three meals you'd love to have? What should we have for dinner this week? I don't know. Well, something with chicken. Okay, well, what is it that you like with chicken? Do you like vegetables, or do you like when the chicken, barbecue chicken? Just ask questions, but have the questions be leading up so that you're encouraging the teens to make decisions, because that is helping foster their critical thinking. You're evaluating, should we have chicken? Should we have steak? Should we have all vegetarian? Or as my daughter Molly likes to say, vegan, although she's never been vegan before. But how can you encourage decision making? And I know that's hard because you have to let go a little bit. So tip number one, this is ultimately to get an English class essay, ultimately to make writing college essays easier, right? Number one, to ask questions, natural questions. And the best way to ask questions is to really listen, to really picture what they're saying. And then number two, to encourage decision making. Okay, now is at the point where I need to try to decide which of these 7 fabulous tips. Okay, all right, so I'm going to go with 2 words that I love. The third tip is to inspire creativity. How are you supposed to do this? Especially a lot of my parents out there who are call them, they're accountants or very left brain. Like my daughter Emily loves physics, right? Loves statistics. How are you supposed to encourage creativity? Well, I think that especially with the holidays coming up, this is a safe, wonderful space to encourage creativity, to encourage what do they love to do other than complain. They'll want things, right? Like, what's the most creative way, John or Emma, what's the most creative way for you to communicate your gift list? Better yet, what's the most creative way for our family to stay organized about giving gifts to others? Or is there anything new that you want to do this holiday season? So how can we help inspire their creativity? And to lead that into the questions you're asking. The idea here is that when they're reading, a difficult work or a classical work, they feel more comfortable with creative thinking. Because the problem is our teenagers, these guinea pigs to technology, guinea pigs to always being on screens, guinea pigs to receiving instant gratification. If their decisions and their thoughts aren't there's not a quick answer. They immediately shut down and move on to the next thing. So what we're actually doing is taking this moment of thinking and having them expand, perhaps even feeling uncomfortable, right? And so I get a lot of the students who are so frustrated that they can't get anything better than B minus, a B plus. And usually there's two reasons for that. And one is pretty serious. One is, to what extent are they understanding what they're reading? So we're talking about hardcore reading comprehension, right? And you could be talking about issues with reading. 9 times out of 10, 9.9 times out of 10, it's just allowing more time to understand some of these challenging, difficult classical works that truly have withstood the test of time, that truly have lived out, reaching your child. But is your teen allowing the work to reach them? And a lot of times, no, because they're not giving enough time. They're not living in that discomfort with, I just don't understand what is meant. Like, I didn't even know Holden Caulfield was depressed, right? And then a teacher will give, 15 different, modes of defense mechanism for Holden Caulfield, but the teenager doesn't even understand that Holden Caulfield is depressed because there aren't discussions going on in the classroom. So what are you supposed to do? So I'm hoping that these 3 tips today are here to help push your teenager into imagination land, creativity land, right? And so with that creativity comes better organization, comes better time management. They step into the fact that there is no good writing, only great rewriting. But are they allowing themselves to even have the time to rewrite, to proofread, to challenge their thinking, to have another pair of eyes to challenge their ideas, so that by the time they're ready to turn that paper in, they feel really, really good about it. So let's see what cute little quote I have here. Oh, I love this quote by J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter, right? So words are our most inexhaustible source of magic, right? And here your kids, the best way to study for the SAT English and vocab and verbal, the best way is not a test prep course. It's embracing the curriculum right in front of them, embracing the curriculum that really bright people, the English department chairs and English teachers, no matter how much your son or daughter likes those teachers, these really great, bright people have planned this literature. So is that literature, coming into your son or daughter's brains? Are they digesting the concepts? And I'll leave you with this final question. So there's one thing as far as annotating and understanding a literal level, right? The plot, the climax, the resolution. It's another thing to understand the deeper meaning. And here's a great question for parents out there. And I've had a couple of parents, I can't believe this, had a couple of parents tell me, however, I think this was on Instagram, and I don't think this goes out to Instagram, that they've had their teens listen to me teaching about annotating tips, listen to their teaching about how to create a specific arguable thesis, because they're not getting this in the classroom. But here's one final question, parents. All right, so if you're watching this to the end, I'd love if you will post a comment and say, watching this to the end. And here's the final tip. And please say hello if you're watching this to the end. Some people only just watch this for 10 seconds. Can you ask your son or daughter, what do you think the author's purpose was in writing this book, in creating this play, in writing this beautiful short story or poem? What do you think the author's purpose was? So for example, I have the painting, and it's not the real painting, but a Sunday afternoon in the park, right? So you have all these old Victorian people, looking out on a Sunday, with a parasol, and some kids are playing, and oh, that's pretty. There's water. I love anything with water. But truly there's a deeper meaning, right? So now there's leisure time on Sunday, and a lot of people aren't sure what to do with themselves. So a Sunday afternoon in the park, there's a deeper meaning. So what is the author's purpose in writing The Catcher in the Rye? Why is it that Shakespeare still lights us up? Why is it? What was his purpose in writing Romeo and Juliet? We can go on and on, right? What are some of your favorite authors, parents? What books did you read in high school or in college that still stick with you, right? And so if your son or daughter can convey and communicate what the author's purpose was, so the answer is going to be some kind of commentary on human nature, human development, society, the different various forms of conflict, right? And then if you really want to, push the envelope, so is it true? Is what the author's saying true, right? And then, so what of it, right? So what are we supposed to do with this information? Just got bumped off of my live because someone was calling. So anyway, time to wrap things up. So if you're watching this, you can type yellow sticks. Mrs. Haskell's wrapping it up. So please, if you would like more, if you know your teams need help with critical thinking, I'll put these 3 comments in the margins and you try it, parent. Try to foster this critical thinking. If not, we are hiring another tutor. We have so many lovely, lovely parents and students who want help in this area, whether it's from icky school with, pandemic stuff and a loss of learning. That's another huge Facebook Live. Or it's just, oh my gosh, wow. I have a sophomore or I have a junior who just has no idea how to think critically. And it's not happening in the classroom, and I don't have time to do it, or I don't even want to do this. Guess what? Message me here or email me, Amy Haskell, or amy@totalwritingenrichment.com. Send me a message through my website, and I'd be delighted to talk to you. We work best with motivated students. Okay, everyone, continue on with the critical thinking, gently but consistently. And you will get there with your team. And I'm here to help you every step of the way. So happy Thanksgiving. If I don't get on here next week, maybe I'll try to, because it's a lot of fun to hear the feedback. And I'll talk to you later. Okay, bye.